I don't know about you, but I'm still buzzing from the Succession series finale last night, and it made me want to pivot to today being Jeremy Swayman Day on the podcast because he could succeed. Linus Ullmark as the number one goalie as early as this coming season. We're going to look back at Swayman's year and portend what is in his future on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and happy Memorial Day to all my American friends. It is Monday, May 29th. And I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day every single day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. As I mentioned off the top, it is going to be a Jeremy Swayman year in review day. We're also going to tie in some questions about whether or not Linus Ullmark could be traded this offseason, and consider some options in free agency for possible replacements for Ullmark and who could serve as backup or in tandem with Jeremy Swayman. Want to remind you that you can find the podcast on Twitter, Instagram at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my dad jokes, and hockey tweets at Ian C. McLaren. And I hope you're all having a great long weekend. Of course, there's a lot of excitement about the Boston Celtics right now, and rightfully so. They have forced a Game 7 after being down 3-0 to the Miami Heat. If they win tonight, it would be the first team ever to pull off the reverse sweep. We know, of course, it's happened in the NHL, but will be quite remarkable. And make sure to check out Locked On Celtics for all the latest on your favorite basketball team. Today, we're talking about Jeremy Swayman on Locked On Boston Bruins, and our boy will turn 25 in November and is on the verge of establishing himself as the number one goalie for the Boston Bruins. Why do I say that? Well, we know that the Bruins have some cap issues this summer. Swayman is a restricted free agent, and it could mean that either he or more likely Linus Ullmark is moved out. First, let's look back at Swayman's season that was. He appeared in 37 games, 33 starts, a record of 24-6-4 with a .920 save percentage. Career highs in wins and single season career high for save percentage in, more than 30 starts. He'd had a .945 mark as a rookie back in 2020-21, but that was only in limited time. Now, of course, he did not play in the playoffs until Game 7, thrust into not an impossible situation, but a very difficult situation where he allowed 4 goals in the 4-3 overtime loss to the Florida Panthers for an .875 save percentage. Now, I mentioned that he is a restricted free agent, and I think you look at the Florida Panthers and Spencer Knight as a comparable for what Jeremy Swayman is going to be asking for, at least on his next deal. Spencer Knight signed, I believe it was 4 years, $4.5 million per season contract with the Florida Panthers. Knight, of course, a highly touted goaltender, first-round draft pick, believed to be the heir apparent following Sergei Bobrovsky. Now, after signing that deal, he did go into the player assistance program, and hopefully he's gotten all the treatment that he requires and he's able to come back and play well in the future. But that limited his appearances this past season to only 21. He did have pretty good numbers. Well, actually, not really. 9, 8, and 3 with 1 shutout and a 901 save percentage. If you look back at the past 3 seasons combined, he's got a 906 save percentage, 291 goals against average, 32 wins, 17 losses, 6 overtime or shootout losses with 3 shutouts. Now, Jeremy Swayman, 22 more wins, 6 more shutouts, 920 save percentage compared to 906. Again, Knight was a first-round pick, 13th overall back in 2019. The Panthers really do believe in him, and I think that continues despite his off-ice struggles. He's gotten the treatment, and the plan is that he'll be back in Florida beginning next year. Put it all together, and you can't really count those personal issues against his cap hit. You look at what Jeremy Swayman has done, and you have to believe that he's going to request and has earned at least the same amount as Spencer Knight on his next deal. At least $4.5 million per season. And they could go even bigger than that if they want to sign him long term. You could get him on a bridge type deal for that minimum, perhaps. But you're not going to be signing him for long term at that cap hit because he is on the verge of becoming a bona fide number 1 goalie who could carry your team. Now, of course, you have to keep in mind that his production, his success to date has come in tandem with Tuukka Rask before him, now Linus Ullmark over the past 2 seasons, and that kind of share in net has certainly helped. I mean, Rask and Halak dating back a few years, but also Ullmark and Swayman here in the present. Do the Bruins believe he can be a true number 1 and carry the Lions' share of starts, with 50-plus appearances per season? Or is he better suited for this tandem? And they'll argue, well, your success has come because of the timeshare with Linus Ullmark. But still, if you look at Spencer Knight as the comparable, he's at least worth the $4.5 million that Spencer Knight. You can argue that that's inflated on Florida's part and that they erred in giving him that much, but it is what it is. It's a legit comparable, and Jeremy Swayman deserves at least that, if not $5 million per season on his next deal. And we'll talk about next what that could mean for Linus Ullmark and the Boston Bruins. But first, a quick word about today's sponsor, eBay Motors. eBay Motors is the place to go to build the perfect fit in your vehicle. For parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. It's a guaranteed fit, which is available only to U.S. customers. Eligible items apply, but with the guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part you need fits perfectly the first time around. Just add your vehicle to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game, and when you shop on eBay Motors, you're getting a selection of over 122 million parts to choose from, so you'll be back on the road in no time. Again, the eBay Guaranteed Fit is available only to U.S. customers. Exclusions do apply, but go to ebaymotors.com right now and find the best part, the right fit, and the right prices for your vehicle. And thank you so much once again for making Locked On Boston Bruins part of your day every single day, free and available wherever you get podcasts. And everydayers can expect tomorrow on the show, we will be looking at the Derek Forbort Connor Clifton pairing and seeing what their future might be, if any, with the Boston Bruins. All right, this brings us to the question of whether or not the Boston Bruins can afford both Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman next season. Of course, Ullmark coming off an otherworldly Vezina trophy-worthy season, and his contract is very team-friendly based on that production at $5 million per. Like I said, Jeremy Swayman could very well earn that much. And the question is whether or not you want to pay $10 million for your goaltending tandem, or whether you sell high on Linus Ullmark, deal him to a Stanley Cup contender that needs stable goaltending. Edmonton Oilers jump to mind right away, and roll with Jeremy Swayman while signing a free agent veteran backup at a far cheaper rate than what Ullmark is making. And we'll look at some of those options in segment 3. It's a real question to ask. I mean, nobody wants to see the end of the goalie hugs. Nobody wants this friendship. It won't end, even if one of them is traded. But it's been such a perfect tandem for the Boston Bruins, especially this past season. They've developed such a great relationship. We all love the hockey hugs. I don't want to see it end. I think you are best set up for success if you have this tandem in net. But the Bruins have. Look, you talk about $4.5 million at least for Swayman. That's what they're paying in dead money this next season to Bergeron and Krejci in bonus overages from last year. It's just a luxury they may not be able to afford, to have those two A-level goalies each making at least $5 million per season. It was such, again, a luxury for the Bruins to have those two guys under contract for around 6 with Swayman still on his early contract. But it could be untenable with him due for a raise and because of the situation with the overages and Boston's cap. You had both Swayman and Ullmark under contract for $6.05 million. Now, Swayman could get on equal footing with Ullmark in terms of salary, and he certainly deserves it. But can you afford both of those guys? Now, I'm not sure that you want to go with a Swayman Bussy tandem heading forward. You want to have some of that experience in net. And again, you have such a great tandem with these two guys together. They're close on and off the ice. They complement each other well. And, you could argue that Jim Montgomery erred in not going to Jeremy Swayman earlier in the series against the Florida Panthers. I think that is a true argument, and I agree with that. I think he should have gone to Swayman earlier in that series and leaned more on the tandem aspect of what made them successful. Again, hindsight is 2020, but certainly after Game 5 and that gaff by Ullmark in overtime, I would have gone to Swayman for Game 6 when you still had 2 chances to win that series. So the big question for Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, Bob Essensa, can you afford these two guys moving forward? And do you trade a Bessie making an appearance on the podcast today? Do you trade Linus Ullmark, maximize his value? Do you trade a young up-and-comer like Jeremy Swayman and roll with Ullmark for a couple more seasons. Obviously, you'd want to go with the younger guy, and I believe he is capable of being a starter in the NHL, playing more than half of the starts, and you can still have great success with a guy like Jeremy Swayman in net. Now, if they were to trade Linus Ullmark, who could serve as partner to Swayman or as, like a veteran backup, we're going to look at some free agent options here coming up after the break. When you look at cap friendly, there are quite a few goalies available that could come in and serve as a partner to Swayman or backup at a pretty decent rate. You have Martin Jones, former Bruin for a second, who had 27 wins last season for the Seattle Kraken, 886 save percentage. However, you could probably sign him for $2-3 million. And again, the whole idea here is to say, let's assume Swayman's going to make what Ullmark made this past season. You trade Ullmark and sign someone as a veteran backup to cut some fat off the cap because of those bonus overages due to Krejci and Bergeron, and maybe even in an attempt to bring them back. Tristan Jarry is a UFA. Frederik Andersen and Antti Raanta are both UFAs in Carolina. They've already signed Peter Kochetkov to a pretty nice deal for them. So perhaps they're probably only going to bring one of those guys back. So one of those will be available. You look at Joonas Korpisalo, who only made $1.3 million last season, .914 save percentage between Columbus and the Kings. You look at Ullmark, and he had very good save percentages with the Buffalo Sabres when they were a very bad team. Korpisalo, same kind of thing. That is pretty promising, and he might be my number one choice. He's 29, Jarry 28, but Korpisalo, put up those big numbers and was a desired acquisition for the Kings after they traded Jonathan Quick, who's also a free agent. He's getting up there, only an 882 save percentage this season. Cam Talbot's a free agent in Ottawa. He's 35, 898 save percentage this season. You have Aiden Hill, who's playing out of his mind for Vegas right now. They're likely going to want to keep him. But Laurent Brossoit, 30 years old, unrestricted free agent, coming out of Vegas. Our old friend Yaroslav Halak's a free agent. I doubt they'd bring him back. Semyon Varlamov, James Reimer, no thanks. Who else is out there? Alex Nedeljkovic is an interesting name. He'll be a UFA. He's fallen out of favor in Detroit after being, a Calder finalist a few years ago for Carolina. He's only 27 years old. Still an 895 save percentage this season. Went down to the minors. That could be a very interesting kind of reclamation project, and he could thrive in Jim Montgomery's system, as Swayman and Ullmark have. That would be a very savvy move. He probably won't command what he made this past contract, $3 million, because his game fell off a bit in Detroit, but still a very promising goalie and only 3 years older than Jeremy Swayman. So if I were to rank these options, I would say Korpisalo, Aiden Hill, but I don't think he'll be made available, and Alex Nedeljkovic as the younger options. If you want to go for a more established veteran, Antti Raanta played very well this season for the Hurricanes. Varlamov, always solid with the Islanders, and Ilya Sorokin, of course, the number one guy there. Alex Lyon is an unrestricted free agent. We know what he did with Florida this past season. All this to say, there are options out there if the Bruins do decide to trade Ullmark and roll with Jeremy Swayman as the 1A and bring in a veteran to serve as backup or in partnership with Swayman in a tandem moving forward. Nobody wants to admit it. Nobody wants to say it should happen. I don't want it to happen, but it's a very real possibility with the Bruins in this cap crunch. And I mean, with a lot of holes to fill in the lineup. You want to re-sign Tyler Bertuzzi, it's going to be very difficult if they don't move a guy like Ullmark, and they just might not be able to afford the luxury of $10 million plus devoted to the goaltending. They may need to have to cut something there. Again, they only have 7 forwards signed at the NHL level for next season. Trent Frederick is a restricted free agent we talked about. Bergeron Krejci may or may not be back. Currently only about just under $5 million in available cap space at the moment. That's a problem. And this is one of the more logical ways you can solve that. And, you look at Succession last night, the unexpected happens. And some people are left picking up the pieces elsewhere. Some people are left smiling because of new opportunities. Some people are left resolved to their fate. And that could be Linus Ullmark being traded. Could be Jeremy Swayman getting a tidy paycheck. And could be Don Sweeney sitting by the river, sitting by the ocean, having a long glance out and pondering what the future could be with these tight cap restraints. Anyways, that's it for today's episode, my friends. I hope you're all having a great Memorial Day weekend and that you're taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other. Everydayers, again, can expect a breakdown of Connor Forbort. Yeah, Connor Clifton, Derek Forbort on tomorrow's podcast as we continue our look back at the season that was for the Boston Bruins here on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Peace.